Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's panel discussion on how to help your business grow, save, innovate, and protect. My name is Mike Stimson. I'm the Director of Strategic Engagement and Process at CONNSTEP, and I'm going to be moderating today's session. So CONNSTEP, for those of you who don't know, is Connecticut's Manufacturing Extension Partnership Center. The MEP program was created by Congress 30 years ago and is dedicated to serving small and medium-sized manufacturers in the areas of operational excellence, business growth, quality management, and technology deployment. Last year, MEP centers nationwide interacted with more than 36,000 manufacturers, leading to over $24 billion in economic impact and helping to retain or create 107,000 jobs. In the Southwest Connecticut region alone, over the last 10 years, CONNSTEP helped our clients achieve over $13 million in cost savings, enabled over $17 million in new investments, helped them attain or retain in excess of $756 million in sales, and helped create or retain over 3,700 jobs. So as the title of the panel discussion suggests, we're going to be spending about 15 to 20 minutes on each of the segments discussing ways that you can find savings in your operations, spur innovation, protect your business from outside threats. As you will soon see, these are challenges that all businesses face, and the approaches to meeting them are intertwined and closely related. We selected today's panel to give you a broad perspective on the topics we're going to be discussing, ranging across economic development, business ownership, and technical subject matter expertise. So at this time, I'd like to have our panel members introduce themselves and share with us a little bit about their background. So Dan Onofrio, would you like to begin?
Yeah, thanks, Mike, and thanks to CONNSTEP for putting this panel together. I think it's a very important conversation. But for those listening to this Zoom, my name is Dan Onofrio. I'm the President and CEO of the Bridgeport Regional Business Council. If you're not familiar with the Business Council, we are a makeup of 3 chambers of commerce: Bridgeport, Stratford, and Trumbull. And in aggregate, we make the BRBC, the Bridgeport Regional Business Council, as I mentioned. One of the key things that we've been doing at the Business Council is we are the convener and the leader of the Southwest Connecticut Manufacturing Partnership. Basically, it's a consortium of CEOs and C-suite executives from the 400-ish manufacturing businesses here in Fairfield County. We're happy to have Kate Donahue from Hampford Research on the call as well, and she's been one of our key leaders with that partnership. But the partnership, and the reason why I want to bring it up is it's really, in essence, an economic development opportunity for Fairfield County. But at its core, it's about workforce development and making sure that we create the talent pipeline for the manufacturers to make sure that they're continuing to thrive here in Fairfield County and in the greater Bridgeport region. And one of the things that often comes up is how we can leverage technology and Industry 4.0 and all the things that we're going to be talking about this afternoon, and why this particular conversation is very relevant for the manufacturing community. So again, I thank you for having me participate in this discussion.
Hey, great. Thanks, Dan. Kate, let me turn it over to you.
Usually my problem is talking too much. Hi, I'm Kate Donahue, President and CEO of Hampford Research. We're a second-generation specialty chemical manufacturer in Stratford. My dad started the firm 40 years ago, and I've been running it for the last 17 or 18 years. We make a whole variety of very special materials, but during my tenure, one of the things that I think has helped promote our growth has been our relationship with CONNSTEP and the work that we've done to streamline our operations and get us on the road to continuous improvement in every part of our business. So I'm happy to be on the panel to give some examples of the kind of work that CONNSTEP has done with us and how it's helped our business thrive.
All right, great. Thank you for that, Kate. And Jeff?
Hi, I'm Jeff Orszak. I'm Director of Business Technology and Innovation at CONNSTEP. Long history in manufacturing and supporting manufacturers. I have a background in lean manufacturing, training in that, as well as in Six Sigma. In addition, helped start CONNSTEP cybersecurity program, and now am focused on looking at where CONNSTEP can support manufacturers in the next 5 to 10 years in their journey in Industry 4.0.
Okay, great. Thank you. So let's begin our discussion with how companies can maximize their resources. So in today's competitive landscape, many businesses have in the past and continue to implement lean practices to become more efficient and reduce waste. And Kate, you mentioned this just a minute or so ago. You've been pretty successful with this at Hampford Research. Can you share with us some of the experiences you have in this area?
Well, this goes back at least 10 years for us. I mean, we've been working with CONNSTEP for a very long time. We were not a very procedure focused organization when my dad was running it. It was kind of like if no one else knew how to do your job, then he couldn't fire you. So trying to do some value stream mapping, making sure we understood the flow of how things were supposed to work. We saw, lots of bottlenecks and how we could clear those up. 5S work helped us. We were either undersupplied or oversupplied, then paying either you not using stuff and it going to waste or paying extra, rush fees to get things here quickly when we ran out of them. So all of those programs helped us to streamline, make our whole organization more efficient. And we also use the CICC certification program. I mean, now every engineer or department leader goes through that program. And that whole experience of learning how to value stream map. But I think for us, the thing that has come through the most is this just whole idea of all these programs help you improve over and over and over. Not one of them is some perfect fix that's gonna change the world. But if you do enough of them and you keep at it, you will make significant progress over time. And that's the core idea that I think is embedded in everything that CONNSTEP is doing. They were heavily on the lean journey earlier on, and then as time has gone on, they picked up on manufacturing 4.0, all the cybersecurity stuff that they're changing with the challenges that industry finds itself facing. And I think that is the other thing that is so impressive about them. Besides their core work on continuous improvement, it's continuing to find and keep their eyeball on what's ahead of us and what is challenging and is going to become more challenging as time goes on.
Let's start maybe with Kate on this one, but I'd like Jeff, you definitely to weigh in, as well as Dan, from what you've seen. What are some of the common challenges business tend to face when they're implementing programs like lean? And in your opinion, how can these be overcome?
For us, it was I had to be the Pied Piper. Like if they didn't believe that the company didn't believe that I was behind this 100%, change is hard. Like nobody wants to do stuff differently. And especially if it's a whole new lingo and a way of looking at things and you're picking your organization apart and maybe saying, oh, the way we're doing it isn't the best way. That's really hard for people. So if I wasn't, the loudest cheerleader for this, they would have done it for a while and then they would have been, oh God, she's over that one. Let's move, we don't have to do that anymore. So leadership support, at least for our organization, was absolutely critical, and not just buy-in by me, but by our entire management team, which took a little bit of time, but they very quickly saw with some 5S work and some value stream mapping. Oh, okay, this really does make things better. It is easier. We are more efficient. We're not overbuying or underbuying. We're getting things done more quickly. But it's definitely a top-down commitment, at least in our experience. I don't know, Jeff, has that been your perspective as well?
Yeah, those are excellent points, Kate. So as you mentioned, this is a change process and change can be difficult for people. And so really need to lay out a vision for people to move forward, build the team around that vision, get some small wins to help them move forward, and then from those small wins, build some acceleration. And of course, being prepared to break down the barriers that will come up along the way. You'll always find obstacles in people and incidences, and being prepared to adjust those are important. But having a leadership vision and building the team to support it, it'll be our critical first steps to moving forward.
Yeah, I
Dan,
have a
you're-
perfect example of the small wins thing. Like one of the big, remember when I first got here, going out to the plant and talking to the guys, and like plant guys like to complain about stuff. I'm like, well, what's your biggest, thing? Oh, we don't have bung wrenches, which is things that you open drums of chemicals with. And there was like one bung wrench, and people would hide it and they didn't want other people to have it. So with the help of CONNSTEP, we did those boards with the diagrams. And so we said, okay, what's the most logical way to do this? First, every guy wanted a bung wrench. Then they realized that hanging off their pants was kind of uncomfortable because they're heavy. They said, all right, well, why don't we put one near each reactor? And it's worked out great. I mean, initially they were like, oh, this is dumb, the shadow boards, like that's like a kid thing. But once they saw that every time they went to that reactor to open a raw material, the bung wrench was there, it was like, okay, this works. And then they held each other accountable for making sure the bung wrench was put back where it was supposed to be every single time. So it's just little things like that, that in the grand scheme of things, a bung wrench, like what? But for them, key tool to do their job, and to know that every time they needed one, it was going to be where it needed to be, gave them one less thing to worry about.
Yeah, interesting story along those lines. My 13-year-old son is in motorsports, and we've set up our pick cart with shadow boards. And so now when there's an incident in the pit, everybody runs to our pick cart because they know where they'll find the tools, because they're in the right place, they're marked, and they're always easy to find.
Yep.
Yeah.
Definitely
Dan,
works.
Dan, your thoughts?
Yeah, no, I would echo both Kate and Jeff, their sentiments. One thing, my previous life, for those of you who don't know me, I ran operations for a database company in Shelton, Connecticut for many, many years. And I know we're talking right now about manufacturing, but these practices, they carry across industries. We were a database company, and doing the value stream mapping that Kate mentioned, we were able to identify just hangups in the process. Like, okay, we received a database from, the Department of Energy, and, that format was just, it needed a lot of massaging before we can actually use it. And sometimes things just got hung up. So it allowed us to create opportunities by identifying the problem. It allowed us to create opportunities to, standardize the formatting a little bit and work with the Department of Energies of the world and the EPAs of the world to standardize how we're getting the information, and it just improved our time to process. The other thing I would just mention too is, as Kate pointed out, it starts with the leadership. This way of thinking is just not an initiative. You can't look at it as an initiative. This is just like a way of doing business. When you go in there as, okay, we're going to do this initiative about lean, and people go, ho hum, but when they see it's part of your culture, and it's part of the way we're going to do business going forward, people do get behind it, especially when you start seeing the small wins and saying, oh, I don't have to do this anymore. I can do this now, because we've just streamlined that process.
So Dan, with your experience again across multiple types of industries, multiple types of businesses, you mentioned this in the business you were in. Have you seen others, or others talking about this within the Bridgeport Regional Group?
Yeah, I would say so. We're always looking to help our partners, improve their businesses and position them for growth. And oftentimes they're asking us for resources, whether it's in production, producing something, or just with the relationships. And perhaps, some cases it's more efficient to outsource something, right? Or to partner with somebody on something. So we do see it, the conversation is definitely relevant across industries, as I pointed out before. But obviously it's front and center for those producing things in the manufacturing space. But certainly our partners are looking for ways to get more efficient, because that just adds dollars to the bottom line. And and helps them position themselves for growth.
And there's a lot of price pressure from customers. I mean, that is not going away. And there's, even though there's talk about reshoring, there's still huge pressure on price. They say they'll pay more to come back to the US, but, the reality is that there's still a lot of, pressure to keep things, in their opinions, reasonable. And so if you don't have a mindset of efficiency, it's going to be really hard to meet those expectations.
Yeah, and we often hear that, Kate, and we actually hear one more thing. And you mentioned onshoring or reshoring, or even just growth, right? For businesses who would like to grow. Oftentimes, price, yes, is a factor, but capacity is the factor. It's throughput. It's the ability to do more with less, particularly in today's hiring market. So either Kate or any of the panel, would you like to maybe comment on how this type of approach can also help solve the other problems, like just the pure lack of people?
Well, one thing I can say is that the whole COVID experience was interesting from the standpoint of how at least our customers look at inventory. So for years, our customers, we knew just for an example, say they would keep 4 weeks of inventory of whatever we were making for them on their shelves. Things go crazy in 2020. They're freaking out. We need, now all of a sudden now they're going to keep 8 weeks of inventory. And, then the accountants go nuts at the end of 2022 and say, oh my God, we got to bring inventory down. Now they've gone from 4 weeks to 8 weeks. Now it's 4 days. So our ability to quickly respond, and we make a lot of things to order, goes right back to this whole value stream mapping thing. Like, how do you make your process as efficient as you possibly can? I mean, I don't think our experience is significantly different from a lot of other companies. We have to have our raw materials. We have to produce our paperwork to make the batches. We have to make them, then we have to quality control them. We have to approve them. Then we have to get them packaged right and safely. We are talking about chemicals. Then we have to get them out, right? And there's a million steps in there. So that we've never been under more pressure to make more on a shorter timeline. But the good part of that is that then that frees up capacity for us. If we can turn batches over quicker, then we can make more and meet increased demands or by existing customers or bring on new customers. Is that what you were getting at, or am I getting on the place?
No, absolutely. That is like one of the key things I know we would try to tell our clients. It really is a growth strategy, right? And I'm trying to remember. I think it was I can't remember who said it, but it is not a program. It is not an initiative. It is a way of working. And that is, I think, one of the key things, and one that will enable other aspect that we're going to talk about today.
Well, the last person we had go through the CICC program was one of our newest engineers, and he actually value stream mapped our stage gate process, which is the process that our new projects go through. So when somebody brings us a chemical they want us to make, all the steps we have to go through to make sure we do it, regulatory and environmentally. We assess the risk. We make sure we can get the raw materials. We understand the chemistry. We understand the engineering. There's a million steps, which can take a very long time. And meanwhile, our customer or prospective customer is breathing down our neck saying, we want to get this to market. So that value stream process that we just did with our stage gate, like earlier this year, we were able to clear up a couple of bottlenecks and are moving through our new product development process more quickly. I mean, the pressure has never been greater to bring things to market more quickly than right now, at least for us.
So what I hear you saying is this isn't just the production floor,
Nope.
right? This has to do with any business process that companies are engaged in.
And once you get the hang of it, once you get the hang of the value stream mapping, you can really see that you didn't really understand all the pieces that go into it. I remember the first time we did it, and it was Mateen, legendary lean guy at CONSTEP. Worst jokes ever, but hilarious. When we took this one process through, we're like, it takes like 9 weeks for us to do this one thing. And we're like, that's not good, right? We were not 100% on time or complete on anything. And it really opens your eyes up to all the places you have opportunities to improve. And then you start seeing with just this little, you have the right people involved and they say, well, I could do it this way, or why do I have to have this person sign off on it twice? Why don't I have them do it once? You just see there's the opportunities present themselves and then the time gets shorter and shorter and shorter. You're like, wow, if we had not done this, we never would have picked this apart as much detail and found all these little holes that we could fill in to tighten things up. It's amazing.
Yep, Kate's making an important point of how lean manufacturing can improve your efficiencies, and that can lead to both more capacity and improved growth as you move forward. So key points there.
I'm passionate about this. If you hadn't
well, that's an
detected
important.
that, yeah.
That's
Passion
really
in a leader is
important to success. So that's great.
Well,
it's
simple,
worked
right?
for us.
It's simple. Time is money, right? So the longer something takes to
Exactly.
do, it's costing you money, and you may not realize it because that's just how it's always been. But you start chipping away at these little things. Next thing you know, like, oh, the light bulb goes off, and the rest of the staff gets behind
People
it.
get on board with it. They all, then they say, oh, okay, I was wondering why I had to do this dumb thing twice. If I do it this way once, I only have to, I only have to do it once. And that's, Jeff, you're right. It's the little wins that keep people going. You don't have to hit a grand slam every time. I mean, I say we just keep bunting the ball, right? Getting it first, moving the runners around the diamond, and then they're the disciples that are passing it on to the new people that come on board.
And I think that's the key, right? Because a lot of these wins, a lot of these ideas will come from those people who are doing the job every day, right? We just have to enable them as leaders to do that and give them the tools, and it's amazing what they'll come up with. So.
And then you got to track stuff. I mean, we have an entire bulletin board outside of production that tracks probably 10 or 12 different metrics. So for instance, one of the things we really tried to work on about 2 years ago was the time it took from when somebody in the plant brought a sample to the lab to be tested, whether it was, we do in-process testing to make sure reactions, gone to completion, and then final product testing on all the things that it was taking, I don't know, 3 or 4 days from the time the plant dropped the sample off until they had results. Well, they value stream map that. We've got it consistently at between 36 and 48 hours now, no matter how many tests we have to do. And we still chart that every single month. How long did it take for us to get things from in and out of the lab and results posted in our ERP system? So when people can see the numbers, that's the other thing. They can see that they've achieved improvement, but that we've also sustained it.
Yeah, and Dan, you had mentioned before that the time is money thing. I think the key point here, this isn't just these have real impacts. These have real financial considerations and improvements that could be had. And when I led in and talked about the impacts that the MEP programs and CONNSTEP has, this is where it comes from, right? These type of things. So I suspect we're going to hear some common themes here when we talk about the other areas of focus. So assuming that there's everybody's okay on this particular topic, let's shift gears a little bit to innovation and discuss how businesses, can leverage some of the latest technologies, including Industry 4.0, to gain competitive advantage. So Jeff, maybe a good way to start is to share with the audience, what do we even mean when we talk about Industry 4.0?
Yep, thanks, Mike. So Industry 4.0 references the fourth industrial revolution, and that's the changes that are coming to manufacturing due to the ability to connect cyber and physical systems together. So what we want to do is connect our people, processes, and technology so they're all responsive to each other. This will have a huge benefit on productivity and increases. And to go back to the example that Kate mentioned, right? Can we put a sensor in to measure the time it takes to go to that lab? Can those data be automatically exported to the ERP system, and then the ERP system automatically be generating the report? Can we get the human out of the loop of doing those activities, still maintaining the data, but making it more real-time, more active, and more connected to your systems?
Okay, so thanks for that. And you just gave a couple examples of a key technology, but are there others that perhaps businesses should be aware of that they could consider when they want to try to innovate?
Yep. So Industry 4.0 is based on the foundation of advanced technologies, and some of those include automation, robotics, digital quality assurance, additive manufacturing, if that's appropriate for your business, and other tools that are connected together. Again, it's about that digital connection. And so moving into that realm, and that will mean sensorization to many processes and connecting those systems into architecture that makes sense for your business.
Okay.
This is where people, I listen to Jeff say this, and this is where I think, and I know Kate probably knows more than I do since she's in it now, but I just remember anytime you start talking about that stuff, and this is where people get freaked out, right? Like, oh no, my job's at risk or whatever it is, and what Jeff mentioned about the chip and just tracking data, just being aware, like start there in a lot of cases. Sometimes it's just as simple as just understand where your baseline is. And that will get people informed, as Kate pointed out, with the process mapping, and they have a billboard that shows the time. And so people really start educating themselves too on how long it takes to produce something and what the opportunities are. So I'm fascinated by the new wave of technology and how that's really going to change how we not only make things in this country, but also just how business is being done. You're starting to see it now with AI and the chat bots and all these things that are happening. And that is a streamlined process for that business that's leveraging that technology, So it's going to be interesting to see how this evolution continues on.
Well, and what it creates is the opportunity for people to continue to evolve their skill sets. So using, like the data automatically going into the ERP system, well, then if somebody doesn't have to do that, they can now spend the time looking at the data and saying, what does this teach us about the trends or patterns, or helping us identify anomalies and problems more quickly, which, computers can help us do, but people need to set those parameters up. And that's what I think we still need to do a better job of, is explaining to people how these things aren't going to replace them. It's going to give them new opportunities and take some of the repetitive work away, but allow them to use their skills and experience to take themselves and the work to another level. And it sort of happens in two places for me, this innovation. It's not just the technology movement from analog to digital in the plant or in the office or whatever, but it's also the market innovation, like what is happening in your market or markets if you're in more than one. How are you going to figure out what's going on and where the opportunities are for your business? I think there's also an opportunity there in this whole 4.0 world.
No,
Yeah,
it's important to recognize that that the connection, like the interconnectedness, should flow right from your customer back into your business, right? So closing that loop and building that circle so that the innovation that you're experiencing understands and informs what you're hearing from your customer, and then that feeds into your product innovation process.
And then hopefully that also helps make manufacturing a little sexier than it is right now, right? This is not your old dirty, well, of course there are some places like that, but in general, right, where there's cool stuff happening, using cool technology, making cool things. I mean, we're big in the 3D printing arena because the material of construction, 3D printed started out being, making, examples of things, samples, and now are being used to actually mass produce. So how do you use different materials of construction to create the properties that you need and whatever it is you're printing? There's a lot of chemistry going on around that right now, which is super cool. Super cool, the kinds of things that they're talking about 3D printing. So when I can talk to people about that, or talk to high school kids about that, they're like, instead of saying, ooh, chemical manufacturing, oh, gross. It's like, you're making stuff that goes, and I'm like, yeah, let me show you the 3D print. No, this is actually CONNSTEPs, but I love this stuff. See how the eyes pop out? But they see where it's going. And I got on a tangent there, but there's so much opportunity, and you can't just go, oh, this is not what we've been doing for the last 100 years. Yes, you can. Yeah.
Well,
one step at a time.
The passion is evident for sure. So, and to your point, there's a lot of cool stuff, right? There's a lot of cool things, both things that you can get into in the market, but I imagine a lot of companies are sitting right now saying, how do I start? How do I even get going? So, again, maybe Jeff, if you can start this off, what's the best way for a manufacturer to start investigating some of these technologies, or identify the most relevant technologies for their specific needs and goals?
Yeah, so that's an important point. Everybody's going to take this journey a little differently, and it's important to build the value where it's going to impact your company first in the best way. And so, much like lean manufacturing, it's important to understand your current state, understanding where you are in your digital transformation, and building upon those tools, and understanding that the areas that you work on impact the business. So doing an assessment that can help show those things is important to getting started. A lot of times those will show you the areas where there's a synergy between the technology implementation and your business processes and cost structure, and you can put those together to have the most benefit.
Dan, where have you, within the Bridgeport group and the folks that you've been talking about, have you seen examples of companies doing this?
Yeah, particularly on I don't know what the technology is called, but the voice and like the Alexa of the world in their manufacturing plants. We have a medical manufacturer in Stratford that's leveraging that technology to help with it's a piece of their production line, but instead of using their hands, they could say, I'm paraphrasing here, hey Siri, zoom in on this, and they can actually see without having to use their hands to get a closer look at it, where they're placing those pins and all that stuff. And it's just really, like I said before, it's very fascinating how you're going to see more of this technology as it evolves, improve productivity. Again, not just in manufacturing. I think we're going to see it across multiple industries. We're starting to look at it here at the BRBC on our website. We're launching a chat bot to answer questions. We're seeing, now that we have some data to see how many people are hitting our website, we're going to use AI to help people navigate the site, and I think it's going to be a big win for us because we're limited on staff. We don't have a lot of resources here. So I know we miss calls, we miss opportunities with people poking around, and that's, this is a nonprofit business, right? So I see technology impacting every industry.
People should just start, just have a conversation with CONNSTEP. Just talk to somebody, talk to Jeff. Obviously he knows a lot about that area, but they also have connections to or access to the state grant money that's available to help pay for some of this training. I don't know all the rules around that, but if there's ways to help underwrite some of this, they will know what they are. But we started the conversation, and then it started with just what is lean. We just started with what is lean, and then we did some 5S, and then we just started CICC, and it just built on itself. But start the conversation, because there's no way you're going to know what's really available for you that's going to work for you unless you have the conversation and get some help making the connections to whatever programs CONNSTEP has that can help you deal with whatever issues, bottlenecks, challenges you're having. There are really, I mean, just a lot of smart people. It is not one size fits all. And the dialogue is there that you need to be able to figure out what's the best way for me to approach this. They're not just going to shove this thing and say, oh, this is how we do it. This is the only choice you have. It's a very collaborative sort of relationship, is in my experience.
So you mentioned challenges. And again, maybe if I can start with Jeff and then we can work it around. What are some of the typical challenges that companies do face when they're considering innovating and going into higher levels of technology?
Yep, thank you. So, I mean, obviously we have the same challenges we talked about with lean, right? This is going to be a change, and all of those change management tools are going to need to come into place. But in addition to that, we have the fact that this stuff is new and it can be hard to understand where it fits in. And so what is the correct technology? How do I understand that? How do I build enough expertise to make a good decision? Those can be all difficult challenges. There's also the noise, right? Industry 4.0 can take a lot of tools into effect. And so which is the right tool for me? How do I make those decisions? Where is this going to come into play? Generative AI is a good example. In the last year, we've seen the conversation around AI explode, but really it's around a small part of AI, these large language models, and there are many other aspects that will impact manufacturers. Not to say that we shouldn't all be using ChatGPT every day. We need to understand how it's going to be able to change our business and get used to that. But we want to make sure that, when companies are looking at data analytics, they're looking at the tools that are really going to help them move forward, and not necessarily some buzzwords that are out in the media these days.
Dan, I mean, can you want to expound on some of this that you've seen?
Yeah, I think we mentioned it before. It gets scary, right? When you start talking about implementing technology and into process and all that. And I think as we pointed out before, you're just starting with the most basic and leveraging the resources that CONNSTEP and some of our other partners have in this space and their expertise. You don't have to do it alone if you're a business, and regardless of the business you're in. I think it's just smart business, right? To take a look at the opportunities to help your business continue hopefully growing. And I think it's a little scary to say this, but I think it's true that if you stand still and don't do anything, you're going to be left behind. And I think if you're committed to growing your business and being more productive and being more efficient and growing your bottom line, you have to at some level embrace the opportunities that technology, industry 4.0, whatever it may be, can have on your day-to-day operations. Otherwise you will be left behind.
It's also what in the incoming generation of workers are expecting. So if you're not doing that, you're going to look old-fashioned and we're not even talking cutting edge. So they're just going to think you're not even in the same room as the edge. So the challenge of the acceleration of the boomers retiring, who are we going to bring into our organizations? They're going to expect engagement with these kinds of tools.
That's a great point, and thank you for making that, Kate, because as we know, workforce, every study that we've seen, every survey that we've conducted appears to be the number one challenge that businesses are facing, particularly manufacturing. So being able to be be a place where people want to work and the new workplace wants to work is going to be so critical in the future. It's critical today, not even in the future.
And it's a combination of culture and are you deploying the most up-to-date technology? They want both. CONNSTEP is a crucial piece for at least dealing with half of that.
So something that was said earlier on I think when Jeff was talking about, what is Industry 4.0, we were talking about connectivity and, how that is really kind of the hallmark, if you will, of this fourth industrial revolution. So as companies increase their deployment of this technology, there's really a need for a robust cybersecurity system and measures. So Dan, in your discussions within the Bridgeport Regional Business Council, what steps or what have some of those discussions been around how to protect themselves from cyber threats?
Yeah, we've hosted a webinar a few months back with one of our partners on cybersecurity. And one of the statistics they mentioned, which really shocked me, is that 80%, I think the number was pushing 80% of businesses that get attacked in some shape or form, they either close or sell within like 9 or 10 months from resolving the issue. And I couldn't believe it. And sure enough, maybe a month after we hosted that webinar, we had one of our partners attacked and they didn't know what to do. And sure enough, they resolved the issue. It cost them millions of dollars to kind of sort through all that mess. And less than a year later, they were on the market and they sold. So it was almost like the case study for what their statistics showed. And the other thing is, no matter how big or small your company is, you need to do something. You need to have some kind of policies in place. Start there and educating your employees. I know there's a lot of businesses out there that think, oh, they're just going after the large companies. They're not looking to my small little, couple $1 million business. But believe me, you're probably the most vulnerable. And what we're seeing in our business community here, and I'm pretty sure when I talk to my colleagues around the state and the region, they're hearing the same thing. It is the smaller businesses that are being targeted because they're easier to access. From my experience, pre-BRBC, but even hearing now, is I think it starts with, just having a policy. Start there. What is your policy around security, and getting your staff trained on what those policies are and good practices to manage their day-to-day, and not click on the bizarre links that you get. Something as simple as that. Start there. And then I know CONNSTEP and our MSPs can help people navigate, okay, what's the next best thing to do? You can't have the most robust system right out of the gate, but you can start chipping away and getting there with some real good foundational policies and procedures for your staff.
And I would say you can't think about it as just like IT's responsibility. It sort of gets pigeonholed there, and they're not always connected to the business implications as broadly as they might. So that has to be, I'm thinking about it here. We probably have to do a better job of that, but it's across business operations. And maybe if we can help people understand that better, that it's just not, do you have a guy, sitting in the corner somewhere that everybody goes to when their printer won't work? That's not what we're talking about. There's a level of sophistication now, and as the Internet of Things and the connectivity gets broader and broader, there's so many access points for bad things to happen.
And so it's interesting. So again, thank you for saying that. This is just an example how it's extremely easy to moderate a session when you've got such talented people, because that was going to be one of my questions. Is this an IT? Is this an IT issue? And you very eloquently said, no, it is not.
I'm sure Jeff can give a better answer as to why.
Well, you gave exactly the correct answer, right? This isn't an IT issue; it's a business issue, right? This affects the whole business and how you impact it, and it's going to impact how you run it. And so that's something to, at every level of the organization needs to be taken into consideration. As Dan said, governance is an important part of that, training employees. cataloging your assets. You can't know what to protect if you don't know what you have, right? And so that's hardware, that's software, that's the people, and especially it's the data you're trying to protect. You need to understand what you want to protect. If there's regulatory requirements on it, if you're in the defense supply chain, those are all important things to do.
And with that statistic from Dan about the number of companies closing or being sold after, that blows my mind. Like, as a business owner, that's like the last reason I would want to fail.
Right.
Okay, I choose a bad market strategy, or I have some catastrophic thing, like to get, blown over by a cyber attack, like that's offensive to me. Like, I do not want that to be the reason my company goes down. Like, wow. I will be paying a lot more attention to this because that's just embarrassing.
Well, and I think some of it goes back. I mean, when we started building our factories, right, they were in old barns or weak structures, and we understood that, as we invested in equipment, that wasn't the right protection for that value of equipment. And now, as our information's going digital, we need to invest in those same security thinking around those things and make sure we're building the structures that are in place, because you're right. You don't want to be the company whose barn blows down in the rainstorm. You want to be the company that's there manufacturing when the rain stops.
So you need to add it to your risk management.
Yeah, most definitely. It should be part of your risk management profile, and what's the impact on your company. Certainly, as Dan said, there's companies that it's just put them out of operations, but there's also going to be reputational harm and impact on your customers and what that does. And so it's an important aspect of business management.
Some of our partners are losing deals because they don't have the right security in place. So they are losing bids or losing deals because the requirement on the other side, like, look, we want to do business with you, but we can't because there's too many vulnerabilities in your process that we just can't tap into. And that's just as bad, I think, as being blown over by the actual hack itself. You don't want to be leaving money on the table.
Absolutely. And that is definitely the case if you are within the Department of Defense requirements or supply chain and others, not just that. But I know a lot of our manufacturers in the state are part of that defense industrial base, or the DIB, as it's like to be called. Been a lot of talk about the requirements, and they've shifted over time a little bit. Or maybe this is a good time, Jeff. Could you give us just a quick overview of what these requirements are and what companies who do participate in the DIB can expect?
Yep. So if you're in the defense industrial base, there's definitely requirements you need to understand, especially if you deal with what's called controlled information. And typically for our clients, that is export controlled, so ITAR or EAR. And those who have it will be familiar. If you have that information, you're almost certainly likely to need to put in place the requirements the Defense Department has recommended. And since 2015, those requirements have been around NIST Special Publication 800-171, and they're now transitioning to what's called the Cybersecurity Maturity Model Certification Process, CMMC. As a base, CMMC's level 2 will be aligned with NIST 800-171, so there's not really a change for those groups there. But the other thing that CMMC is going to do is pull in lower level Defense Department supply chain members who are going to need to do level 1 and have some basic cybersecurity requirements in place. And that's going to come with attestations or certification process. And for those companies that can do self-attestation, it's going to be at the president level, right? And so the executives, going back to what we said about risk management and business processes, the presidents are going to need to be aware of what they're doing, because it's going to be their responsibility to attest to those cybersecurity requirements.
The other thing that we found is that our insurance company is upping the requirements for more coverage or any kind of coverage. So we can get better rates the more robust our internal cybersecurity policies are.
Yeah, definitely. 5 years ago, it just depended on what industry you were and how big you were, and now they're starting to understand that that risk model isn't working for them, and that they want to make sure you've got activities in place that lowers their risk so that they can make sure you're insurable. And so, just as we see the driver apps where you can show your insurance company you're driving safely and stopping and driving at the right speed, insurance companies want to see that you've got the right cybersecurity and processes in place to reduce your exposure.
If I'm not mistaken, along those lines, there's also a potential risk, because we're all talking about risk mitigation here. Potential risk is I have a relationship with your company and you have a hack, and I could potentially have a negative impact to that. So there's a risk of litigation and things like that. And if I'm not mistaken, the state of Connecticut has actually put in some legislation in place to help protect companies if they've taken the right reasonable approaches to protection. I mean, Jeff, can you talk a little bit about that?
Yep, you're correct. So in Connecticut, if you follow a standard for your cybersecurity practices, it's a defense to show that you've done something. And I don't remember exactly what it's called in tort law, but it does really put the onus on the person suing you to prove that you made a mistake rather than you having to defend your actions. So it's a strong statement for putting cybersecurity practices in place and following a known standard.
Let's assume I'm running a company. I'm not part of the defense industrial base. I'm not in that supply chain. Are there protocols, or what are the standards? I mean, should we just continue to follow the same standards, or what would be the advice to companies not in that area?
Yep. So, as with everything, we'd say start with an assessment. We want to understand where you are, what your current state is, what protections you have in place, and also what you're trying to protect and how much you need to protect it, right? So in cybersecurity, there's 3 areas that we talk about in protection: confidentiality of data, integrity of data, and availability of data. And for each of those areas, you typically rank on a scale of low, medium, high, how much effort you want to put into protecting that. So, for example, the DoD requirements are medium level in confidentiality, right? What they're trying to do is protect the confidentiality of data at a medium level. Availability is a crucial aspect in operation, and so deciding, what you need to do to make sure your data is available and you continue operating is key. And so once you make those decisions and know your current state, you can build a roadmap that uses applicable standards to move forward. NIST has multiple variations of these standards that have been built for small businesses, and CONNSTEP can bring their expertise into applying the correct one to your business and helping you understand the protections you want to put in place. And of course, if you're in the defense supply chain, we can help you understand the protections that are being mandated for you.
We're also seeing it with some of our customers in other industries. I'm pretty sure it's not to the level of DIB companies, but there's definitely more pressure on us to be able to explain our cybersecurity policies and procedures. So I don't think it's going to stop. I mean, I think that'll just continue to be the case, especially like us, if we're making materials that our customers have developed and where that IP is so important.
Right. Yeah, no, IP can be a crucial piece of information in understanding how you want to protect that. Probably at the same level that the Defense Department is
Yes.
trying to protect their IP, right? Medium level confidentiality standard is not unexpected. And yes, of course, there's, your customers have an important role to play in this, both, as you said, in their data and their IP, making sure your operation is maintained, right? That when you have a 4-day supply chain window, they don't want you to have a cyber attack, because that's going to really disrupt that process too, right? So it does all come into play. And so that's crucial. And then some other industries have built in their own standards. And then there's, depending on what you do, many attacks have actually been rooted in a supplier-customer relationship, right? So the attack starts as a supplier, but the real target is the customer. And so understanding that and making sure you're aware of your connections with your customer to make sure you're not creating vulnerabilities in their systems.
Yeah, if memory serves, a couple of years ago, there was a water system out in Oregon that was, penetrated and disrupted by a male actor. And the way in was through a fourth tier supplier.
Right.
And just working their way in. So
Wow.
to your point, everybody is vulnerable here and plays a part in securing the supply chains. Let's talk about some key takeaways from things that we've talked about. So one thing I hope everybody takes away from this is these areas of how to improve our operations, how to innovate, how to protect are not separate topics, right? But really are closely interrelated and have to be approached with this in mind. So this typically requires holistic view of what you're trying to do in order to succeed. Some of these topics may seem complex. Please, everybody should know that we're here to help demystify them and get started in these areas. Quick wins on initiatives like lean or technology are the way to go, are the way to start it. I also heard, a very key point around the workforce. Innovation provides the opportunity for people to grow and to evolve, as well as to attract workers. I mean, innovation as a worker attraction strategy is kind of needed these days. So those were some of the key takeaways that I heard. Let me go around and just see if kind of for last thoughts on the panel. So Dan, if you'd like to start.
Yeah, no, I think you wrapped it up pretty good, Mike. Again, going back to the lean stuff, I think if we could just businesses understand the opportunities that exist there, and as Kate pointed out, with having it be not just an initiative, but something that leadership is committed to. That's a great first step. And then not being afraid of the technology and this innovative pipeline of Industry 4.0 opportunities. They are opportunities for businesses, no matter who you are, whether you're producing or not. I do think there's ways that you can implement technology to make yourself more efficient and be competitive in the long run. Because if you don't, I think you will be left behind. And then ultimately on the cybersecurity stuff, it's good business. Like I said, even at the basic level, I know some of our manufacturers. I think the average manufacturing business in Connecticut is less than 25 employees. They may not have a dedicated IT person, but there's resources that available through CONNSTEP and through some MSPs at least get you started at the most basic level. Because if you don't do it, you are leaving yourself open to some not so great things happening, and you are the target, as I mentioned before. It's not the bigger businesses they're going after; it's the smaller ones.
Kate, some final thoughts?
I would argue that sometimes the big derailer is that leadership isn't on board. And I would honestly say, how can you consider yourself to be the leader of an organization if you are not willing to get behind these kinds of efforts? Because there's literally no downside. So I would really question anybody that, and it's not like I'm a hands-on kind of person, so the first couple of rounds of 5S, I was out there helping sort, select, all that stuff, just to see how it works. Because then I did some of it. I tried to get my husband to do some of it at home, marginally successful. But you don't have to do it, but you have to be the cheerleader. And sometimes things don't happen at companies because the top guy can't get on board. It's not beneath you. It really isn't. And then I think the other point would be just get started, just do something. You'll start to see the return. And it's not going to, it's going to save $1 million right away, but you will start to see that you're pieces of money just that waiting to be grabbed and pulled down back into your coffers, and making your team work better. The payoff is tremendous, but you just have to start, and it doesn't even matter where you start, just start. And you start to get to know the CONNSTEP team in particular, because they're the experts and they're really smart and great at what they do, and they will help you go at the right pace with the right programs. And I can't, I can't imagine working with anybody else, honestly. And not that this is supposed to be, well, maybe it is supposed to be a big ad for CONNSTEP, but they have just continued to evolve with us over time as we've needed to. And like, they help you get money so it doesn't cost as much. Like, come on, this is like a no-brainer.
Okay with it?
Connecticut manufacturing, let's go. Come on.
And Jeff, any final thoughts?
Yeah, no, thank you for that, Kate. Yeah, I mean, as Kate indicated, it's something for leadership to take a view at. There's efficiencies to be gained, and that means money. And so you should start doing that. And as with anything, we suggest, as you look at a process, you start with the current state and map out your future state. And, we're here to help you do that and build your future company now.
Well, I'd like to thank the panel for this excellent conversation, and thank for everybody for joining us today. We are presenting up here our contact information. If anybody would like to contact us to find out more, we encourage you to please give us a shout, and we can help you make that start, make that journey. Again, what is it? The journey of 1,000 miles starts with a single step. So the key is to make that step. If there are no further questions, then I thank you, and we'll talk to you soon.